at Disney World. And I confess I am excited to see Mickey. It's always nice to meet a world leader who has bigger ears than me.
Welcome back to the Ed Show. President Obama has reason to be happy these days. While Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich are in a death match in South Carolina, President Obama, well, he went to Disney World. He's got reason to do it. His administration is finding new ways to boost tourism and the economy. He may be on a roll. The facts. Today, after 3 years, General Motors is once again the #1 car maker in the world. 3 years ago, President Obama engineered an $80 billion loan for the automobile industry. He took a huge risk, and it is paying off, and none of the Republicans went on board with it. Mitt Romney wrote an article entitled, "Let Detroit Go Bankrupt." Good plan there, huh, Newt? Today, we've learned jobless claims fell to a 4-year low, the lowest level since April of 2008. Jobless claims have fallen ever since President Obama's stimulus package went into effect. And there's more. U.S. factories are roaring back from the depths of a recession. Factory output is up. And oh, by the way, since 2009, the stock market has risen more than 50%. And yes, the stock market is part of it all. But Newt Gingrich says President Obama wants to be the food stamp president. Obviously, the economy is not yet where everybody wants it to be, but we have to admit that President Obama, as he says it all the time, says that, but it's getting there, isn't it? And with no help from the Republicans, despite consistent GOP obstruction, President Obama is getting the economy back on track. There are plenty of indicators. Let's turn to Joyanne Reed, MSNBC contributor and managing editor of thegrio.com. Also tonight with us, MSNBC political analyst Richard Wolff and Democratic strategist Krystal Ball. Great to have all of you with us tonight. You know, if the economy keeps rising, Richard, what happens to the Republican challenger? I mean, aren't they kind of hoping on bad news economically? A lot of good stuff is out there right now.
Could be a little bit awkward, especially if you've built your entire premise of your candidacy on beating Obama on the economy, and that's the position of Mitt Romney. You know, if you're Rick Santorum, maybe there's something else you're going to go for. After all, you could do the manufacturing critique, you could go after the social values, but for Romney, the whole premise is, I understand about the economy. This guy's never even seen the working economy. So, you know, the economy turning around doesn't just affect the underlying numbers, it's the fundamental premise. And you've got to think back to the 2008 election. Barack Obama started out thinking that Iraq was going to be the be-all and end-all. By the time he got to the general election, it wasn't Iraq. People didn't care about Iraq, they cared about the economy. So if the story changes over time, which it surely will, if not just because politics never stays the same, but because the economy doesn't either, if this story changes, these candidates, especially Mitt Romney, has got nowhere else to go.
The GOP crowd, of course, has always been downplaying good news. They actually sound like they're betting against America right now. Today, the Obama campaign said this about Romney's offshore accounts. Why doesn't he just tell voters in South Carolina, Florida, and other primary states exactly what he's been paying in taxes and what his investments are? It's clear he doesn't want the American people to see these things. Joyanne, this really has been a problem for Mitt Romney. How's he going to overcome this?
Yeah, I think for Mitt Romney, the biggest problem is the empty narrative. You know, Mitt Romney has really offered no other reason for running for president, no affirmative reason to elect him other than, I am Mitt Romney, I am a businessman. So that means the focus naturally goes to his business background and to what he did in the biggest business he ran, Bain Capital. And then you have this narrative of the 99% versus the 1%, and because he so embodies it, everything that advances that narrative fills in the gaps. So right now, Romney has a problem. As Richard said, if the economy gets better, then we're really just going to focus on who are you, Mitt Romney, and all we've got right now is this 1% narrative.
And staying on the economy, you know, Krystal Ball, I mean, the Republican nominee, unless I'm missing the news, they all seem to be pushing the same doggone policies that Bush did that got us into this mess. I mean, isn't this easy picking for President Obama?
I think you're absolutely right, Ed. I mean, one of the things that I will say about the Obama administration is I don't think they've done a good enough job of cheerleading for their own policies, which have been incredibly successful. So as a result, you have a president who's very personally popular, and his policies not as popular as he is. But with Mitt Romney, you have someone who is not personally popular, and when Americans actually start digging into the fact that his economic policy is basically to give himself and his friends another huge tax cut at the expense of the middle and working class people, they are not going to be happy with what they find. So I do think the president is very well set up. And as Richard pointed out, previously, we were worried that the president would have to argue a counterfactual, that things would have been worse if it were not for him. Now the Republicans are having to argue the counterfactual, that things would have been better if not for President Obama. And that's a very difficult place to be in.
I mean, President Obama is like a supercomputer. I mean, this guy has got phenomenal recall. His debating skills are just fantastic. He is going to be able to pick apart the Republican economic plan and put it to where we were and to where we are. Richard, it would seem to me that would be the home run right there and would convince a lot of people. Where am I wrong?
Even if the economy doesn't pick up, say this thing runs out of steam, gas prices break through $5, people don't feel that great. When you go back and say, what went wrong with the economy? Why are we in this hole? The polls have been really consistent. The facts are really consistent. It wasn't because Wall Street was over-regulated. It wasn't because, you know, there was a President Obama there. It all happened beforehand. People blame the Bush administration. They blame Wall Street being out of control. They know why this economy went into the tailspin it did. They may want it to get better quicker, but the root causes of this, the policies that were behind that, the kind of reckless behavior from people who are supposed to defend capitalism, that's all out there. People understand it. That's what Republicans have to push against if they want to convince people they can make it better.
And there is news tonight. Newt Gingrich just released his 2010 federal income tax return. He reported over $3 million in income. Time for Mitt Romney to release his taxes, Joyanne? I mean, what does it matter? Do we have to wait till tax season at this point? What's his best move?
Yeah, I know. I don't understand the Romney strategy. It's just excruciating. Just release them already. We already know that Newt Gingrich himself is rich, too. So it's sort of funny listening to him talk about rich people when he's one of them. But for Romney, it just exacerbates the problem of us not knowing so much about him personally. So we're interested in his wealth and in his business background. It's natural. If he would just release them and get it over with, people could vet them and move on. But he's dragging this out in a way that makes it look like he has something to hide.
Well, Newt's pretty cagey. He's going to sit there and say, well, I am a millionaire and in the top 1% too, but at least my money's not offshore.